So here we go.
Mr. Olufemi Boyede is the convener and lead of Talking Trade and Investment Global TATRIG team. He is the managing director and CEO of Koinonia Ventures Limited, Nigeria, and President Koinonia Global Services Incorporated, Canada. He is a certified international trade professional with over 3 decades of experience in the field of international trade and strategy, and Nigeria's go-to authority on international trade and non-oil exports business. He is an expert in global business environment, international marketing, trade research, finance, supply chain management, and a seasoned expert in navigating the complexities of global trade generally. Mr. Boyede boasts an impressive career in government, private sector, and international consulting roles. He is the organizer of the annual Nigerian Non-Oil Exports Conference, Exhibition and Awards (NNECEA) and convener National Policy Dialogue on Non-Oil Exports. Let's welcome Mr. Olufemi Boyede.
You're all welcome once again, and like we took time to explain, we want to periscope some of the recent policies. And so I just do a quick presentation. Some of these slides I will leave for other speakers to look at. Especially when it comes to the legal things there. So here we go. As we all know, Nigeria is a government-led economy. The implication of this immediately is that every policy of government does exert an immediate impact on how every sector of the economy performs. As of today, Nigeria ranks number 131 out of 190 economies on the ease of doing business ranking. This is according to the World Bank in 2022. We are waiting for the 2023 ranking. I believe we should have moved up based on the fantastic work that Dr. Duole and her team are doing at PEBEC. The Naira is gaining value. As of yesterday, you could get it at between 1240 and 1265 at the parallel market, very close to what it is on the official exchange rate also. So we applaud the government on all of this, but we want to ask ourselves, on what grounds, what are the economic indicators? Is it sustainable, and for how long? We actually wish and pray that it gets sustained and that we can provide the empirical backing strong enough to continue to firm up the value of the Naira. Nigeria is still a monoproduct economy. Apart from services, the financial services and all the rest, 81% of Nigeria's export is oil-based. And we all know that the world is fast moving away from crude oil. We believe that policy coherence is not adequate enough, and this has led to the experience of policy somersaults. Even as recently as last week, we see ministries, departments, and agencies overturning some of the circulars and policies that they issued about 48 to 72 hours earlier. I think we should be able to do better. The major policy that prompted the topic of this month's discussion was actually the invocation of the Export Prohibition Act, and we all woke up. By we now, I'm talking about Nigeria's export sector, woke up to read in various newspapers, as you see here, where the Nigeria Customs Service had received the president's endorsement and marching order to implement to the fullest the Export Prohibition Act of 1986. And you will see in the slides that follow some of the products. What was even more concerning was the general blanket classification of this prohibition as saying Nigerian foods can no longer be exported. And for somebody like me, that very night, I wondered what will happen to the social earnings of this world, what will happen to the Auckland Best, AM Foods, BIMCAF, who have expended their very selves, their resources, their time, their investments on acquiring food processing equipment. And we were celebrating almost 2 years ago at a PDF event in a hotel in Lagos, celebrating Nigeria's women and how versatile they had become on food uh, processing and packaging. So if we say Nigerian foods can no longer be exported without any clear definition of which foods, and then we are invoking an act that was introduced in 1986 with specific reasons why each of those products was actually mentioned list, we felt that there was danger looming. In trade and investment, global had been advocating export driven and an economy where the performance of the non-oil export sector, you're talking of our honey beans, you're talking about ginger and what have you. If we certification, then we run the risk of falling into cultural products from Nigeria.
So I was on the Export Prohibition Act, and I was explaining that the current administration of Nigeria Customs Service actually started on a very versatilely positive note of positioning itself as a trade facilitation agent, as against what we used to know as a revenue generation center. So we believe that what we're doing today, we bring more awareness to what the invocation of that act has impacted on Nigeria's export. We also want to talk about the reintroduction of the export licenses and the renewal of the licenses based solely on proven repatriation of export proceeds during the preceding export year. And recently, we started hearing about denominating exports in Naira. So I'll talk about this in the next few minutes. To the next slide, please. So the policy implications that I'm talking about, the Export Prohibition Act was issued in 1986 as an addendum to the Nigerian Export Promotion Council Act. Initially, cassava tubers, yam, rawhides and skins, and oil palm were banned for the reason of food security, giving value addition and local processing needed a boost. The needed boost. Rawhides and skins also featured on that list, with the immediate impact being the exportation of tanned leather by such companies as Mamuda Industries, Mario Jose, and Unique Leather, all in Kano, and the emergence of a finished leather products sector by Naraguta Leather and others in Jos. So timber in its raw form was banned in order to stimulate the exportation of furniture components. And we saw emergence of furniture companies like the plywood company in Ose, near Akure in Ondo State. We have quite a handful of them. The reintroduction of the Export Prohibition Act by NCS has been explained to cover all food items as a first step of curbing smuggling and food shortage. The recent amendments of the Export Prohibition Act by the Business Facilitation Act of 2023. So talking about the Export Prohibition Act, when it was in its original form, it provides that anything contained in the customs and excise tariff, etc., or any other enactment, the goods specified in the schedule to this act are prohibited from being exported outside Nigeria. So we also had recently the Minister of Information announcing the reintroduction of export licensing with a proviso there that for licenses to be renewed, the exporter must show evidence of having repatriated proceeds in the previous export year. And on this, the exporters are asking, the new export licenses, is there an improvement of what NEPC currently operates? We are all aware that NEPC has gone very, very far and very modern in making it easy for exporters to register in the comfort of their homes or offices online. And you get your certificate, download and print in the comfort of your room. Now, we have gone back to the import-export license regime, where we all know what happened in those years, how difficult. It was probably more difficult for a camel to pass, through the needle's eye than to obtain an import license from Nigeria. And that was the reason initially why the word license was removed in the field of export, and all you needed was an export registration certificate. And for our information, and I'm sure the practicing exporters on this platform will attest to it, smart, mischievous, and opportunistic consultants, when you go to them to say that you want to go into export, they make it look so gargantuan that you need an export license, without letting them know that it is so easy to just get an exporter registration certificate. So the question we are asking, when we change it back to license instead of certificate, does it become easier for the exporter or more expensive and tedious? And what change really has been achieved? The next part of that particular pronouncement is that the export license, let's use the new word now, will only be renewed if an exporter shows evidence of having repatriated export proceeds within the first 12 months. That's the validity of the original certificate. If you are in the export industry, you will know very clearly that from product identification to product preparation, product packaging, to negotiating the export contract, securing export financing, and then executing the export contract, it takes definitely more than 12 months. The only people who can show you evidence of repatriation of export proceeds as at this moment under this proposed regime will be the multinational corporations. What happens to the indigenous Nigerian exporter who has to go through the export value cycle to ensure that he carries out his first export? Will it be done within the 12 months that the certificate is valid for? Even the Central Bank Act allows an exporter 180 days, 6 months in the first instance, to bring in the proceeds of his export. From the date of shipment, date of bill of lading, that the goods have moved until the money comes in, 180 days.
80 days.
There is the window to further extend, to grant the exporter a moratorium in case the importer out there has one challenge or the other in paying. The other one that is of concern is the recent talk. I hope it just ends on the level of talk and doesn't get any further implementation, where we are saying that exports will now be denominated in Naira. And I will give you a live case study. When I was in Canada in December, I struck a very big import-export collaboration with one of Nigeria's biggest distributors, one of the biggest warehouses in the GTA, Davison Foods in Hamilton, Ontario. And the major reason why we never started was that as at that time, they wanted that whatever we shipped from Nigeria will be settled in Naira. If you fill a form NXP, it does not have the provision for you to repatriate proceeds in Naira. And if you look at the very definition of export, it refers to a product or service produced in one country but sold to a buyer abroad. Therefore, goods purchased in Naira do not qualify as export. It is at best tantamounting to local sourcing. And put all of this together at Talking Trade and Investment Global and our partners business today, we think that policy process needs to be reviewed and it needs to be articulate and adequately followed, just like we have due process. This will include, but definitely not limited to, identifying the issue, defining what the issue is, setting an agenda for the formulation of policy, data research and analysis for policy making, the formulation itself, consultation, validation, where you bring the draft. In the ministry, they will call it zero draft. You present it to the stakeholders, they validate, modify before adopting. Then it becomes a collective document before we go on to policy implementation and then monitoring and evaluation. This, we believe, needs to be followed. I have deliberately in this presentation abstained from going deep into the Business Facilitation Act because my colleagues, the lawyers, one of whom I know was 100% involved in the BFA, will be talking to you more about that shortly. And on a final note, I think that it is very, very pertinent that at Talking Trade and Investment Global and media advocacy, we need to clamor for an executive order that prioritizes non-oil export as a solution to Nigeria's dwindling foreign exchange earnings. We have had interventions, and that's the question that we asked earlier on. Is it sustainable? We've had interventions. We've had Central Bank of Nigeria pumping in monies to the Bureau de Change. And I was actually talking to a Bureau de Change operator yesterday. If CBN is giving each of you $10,000 and a small business actually needs to purchase an equipment for $15,000, when you have sold your $10,000 to him, what happens to every other customer that comes along and is looking for foreign exchange? We need to ensure that this is properly done. And just like we said earlier, we need to follow a policy formulation process, consultation, engage players, get a joint ownership of this, In that way, nobody is going to be flouting, nobody is going to be sidestepping. And this, on this, I call on the Nigeria Customs Service probably to step down on the 100% invocation and and execution. I think I want to use the word of execution rather than implementation. Execution of a business of an export prohibition list that has been modified in itself, that allows for the Minister of Finance to actually take a more practical look at the goods and commodities from Nigeria that need to be prohibited from being exported. Blanket banning of export of foods from Nigeria is not the answer. I want to thank you for your attention and again apologize. And we've never had it this bad in terms of technology failure. Thank you for listening.